Hey guys, so I went ahead and did my Word document or my Word presentation on malware. So I chose this because this is something as our society begins to go ahead and move everything over to a technology standpoint, we will be facing more malware, not only in our computers, but since we are always on day to day using software, even on our phones. So I found this quite interesting, and honestly, I dealt with this since at a young age. I faced malware. I'm pretty sure some of you guys have as well. So moving forward, we're going to go ahead and just give the definition to what is malware. So malware is a collective name for a number of malicious software variants. So there's different ones, including viruses, ransomware, and spyware. Anyone who has owned or used a computer has probably had experience with one of these malwares. So I work in the banking business and financial institution, and unfortunately, malware is a very serious thing, which leads to a lot of financial crime. Most of malware is for crime by obtaining bank account information, debit card information. So this is a very serious matter, not only to protect your information, but it also down the line it affects a society as a whole. So the first one we're going to go ahead and talk about is viruses. I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with viruses. So in case that we must differentiate what type of virus we're referring to, just like a virus that can affect a human, these viruses are targeted to computers and oddly enough work similarly like viruses. A computer virus is a type of malicious code program written to alter the way a computer operates and is designed to spread from one computer to another. So how a virus works is by attaching itself to a legitimate program or document that supports macros in order to execute its code. Just like a human virus, like we're dealing right now with COVID-19, viruses need to attach to something to go ahead and replicate and go into other cells. So I'm believing that's where this type of malware got its name, because it works the same way. So how do you know if you have a computer virus? Appearance of multiple pop-ups, changes to your computer that you did not make, and slow computer performance. Mind you, I'm going to say this right now in the beginning of the presentation, is that a lot of malware have similar symptoms, so you definitely always want to go ahead and research further what type of symptoms you have to differentiate what type of malware you might have. So continuing, and frequent computer crashes, of course, that is quite annoying, especially when you're working on school projects, and programs on your computer that you don't recognize, because the virus is going to need some programs to go ahead and continue to do its dirty work. So the next one that we have right here is worms. So of course, not that we're referring to earthworms right here. It's a certain type of malware that is able to replicate itself. I'm guessing this malware is called a worm to pay homage to its parasitic features of replicating itself. So worms can modify and delete files, and they even inject additional malicious software onto the computer. So computer worm can also just have the sole purpose of taking up space in the computer and adding malicious software in the computer. Computer worms act just like a parasite by taking up space and letting bad things in. Worms can add backdoors to let hackers get access to information. So, does your computer have worms? Look out for these symptoms. Very low to minimum space in hard drive. Since they replicate fast, they use up all the space in the computer. Check the speed and power of your computer. If it's running slow and programs are not loading properly, the worms are taking up the power, like the parasites that they are. Be on the lookout for missing or new files. One function of a computer worm is to delete and replace files on the computer. So now that we went over worms, we're going to go with rootkits. I personally was not familiar with what a rootkit was. This is the first time I heard of them while investigating about malware, which I find quite interesting and how many type of malwares there is. So my comparison or my best explanation of what rootkits are is like the cloak of invisibility for my Harry Potter fans. So for hackers and cyber criminals, they are used to hide malicious software in your computer. What is interesting about rootkits is that on the outside they aren't harmful, but the package inside them is. Rootkits have the ability to go undetected and steal information. Another scary thing about rootkits is how hard they are to detect. They could go undetected from antivirus software as they load before the whole operating system does. So before you even get to turn on the computer, these things are up and running. So it's kind of scary how that works. So a Trojan horse. The name for this malware is perfect, just like the story of the Trojan horse. Is this malware disguises itself as a legitimate program to gain access and wreak havoc. This allows cyber criminals to spy on you, steal and modify your information, and noticeable difference that Trojan horses have is that they aren't able to replicate. So that's a good thing. So the symptoms are slow internet or not being able to connect to the internet at all, unfamiliar programs installed, and annoying pop-up ads. Again, I'll repeat that they have similar symptoms of other malware. So it's very important to know the differences and what sticks out to you. The more research done on these malwares, the more prepared you are to go ahead and combat them on your operating systems. So, spyware is literally the definition for a program that installs itself and monitors everything you do. It's creepy, right? It does this without you knowing, invading your privacy. Spyware gathers information so you could share it with other people. It is uncommon that marketing companies use this, and it could also be referred to as adware. The type of information it can relay is personal information and browsing habits. Spyware can also obtain your user ID credential and password for cyber criminal activities. And what I mean, coming back to, where I work, unfortunately, it's mostly used for monetary gain to hack people's bank accounts, to commit fraud and debit and credit cards. Of course, there's more ways of using people's information for other purposes, but this is one of the main ones that is like a threat to people and to financial institutions, and one I personally work with. So the computer symptoms of spyware is a horrible system performance, which is pretty noticeable right away. Low computer space, because it does take up space because there'll be unrecognized programs there. Computer freezing, trouble connecting to the internet, and failure to boot. So, how do you keep your computer safe from malware? Using a firewall. Most computers, especially Windows operating systems, have this automatically. Pretty sure nowadays when you go ahead and buy a new laptop, a new computer, it tells you about setting up firewalls, downloading anti-spyware, and keeping all that good stuff up to date, which I recommend because sometimes even as adults, even though we know not to click on certain stuff or open, we might make a mistake. Sometimes I click on random stuff trying to click something else next to it, and bam, there you go, you got a virus. So as I mentioned before, keep all software up to date. Since cyber criminals continue to figure out how to hack through the operating systems, but with that being said, there are always new updates to cover in holes in old software that could have been missed. Updating the software covers up these holes in security. So what happens, they release a software, they'll try to find its weakness. And obviously, software companies know this, and that's why they keep on having updates. It's not for them to get your money, which, I mean, it is, but at the same time, we have to keep up with the times because these cyber criminals are very smart. So use antivirus software, like I mentioned before, like using Norton, Kaspersky. I might be mispronouncing that, but there's a couple great software, anti-spyware softwares you could use that'll keep your computer running, and it protects your information. I know most people think like, oh, I'll never get spyware, I'll never get malware on my computer, but you have to realize how many times have you saved your password on Google or typed very sensitive information, do your taxes and everything. Just think about the information you put in your computer and how you want to go ahead and protect that. So, because malware can also come up from pop-ups in legitimate programs, guys, legitimate programs. So the best offense is always defense. Protect your passwords. Do not use the same password for every program. So I'm kind of guilty of doing this because no one can remember different passwords. Like I have maybe 12 or 20 systems I use, like at work, for example, but they make me reset that every 30 days. So that's just the security measure we already have. Make sure you have a complicated password that includes numbers, uppercase and lowercase, and symbols. Update your password every 30 days. So for example, in a financial institution, we do update it every 30 days. I think it's just best practice to go ahead and do that. Write it in a notepad somewhere safe where only you have access to that information. All right, we're going to the second page of keeping your computer safe. Do not click on suspicious emails or attachments. Sometimes hackers disguise emails and make it look like it's coming from a legitimate source to trick you in providing information or clicking the link to be downloaded on your computer. I have actually seen this in person where people have been victims of these type of phishing attempts. That's what it's called, phishing. So they'll send an email saying like your debit card's been locked or you have been locked out of your online banking. It says please click here to reset your information. I'll take you to a page that looks just like your financial institution's page. You'll enter your user ID and password and it'll steal your information from there, so then they could go ahead and log into your online banking and go ahead and transfer funds, do illegal activity. Another thing I recommend is browse safely. Websites that have offensive or illicit content are more likely to have links to vulnerability to malware. So places where, people watch movies illegally or download music illegally. Also, just things that are adult content, for example, they are a breeding site for malware. So because a lot of free stuff is there, they know they're going to get a lot of traffic and it'll be much easier to get into people's information. Do not download pirated material. So we're coming back in a circle. You do not know what is in the files you are downloading. You think you are downloading a free movie, but attached to it is malware. Anyways, it's legal, guys, so, it's very easy to download malware with the free stuff. Do not use external devices that are not yours. You do not know what is in them. As soon as you insert them to your computer, you may be downloading a virus. So here are the references I use that you guys could also use to go ahead and do some research on these type of malwares. I definitely recommend it. And once again and foremost, stay knowledgeable as things keep on changing. There might be new malware in the future that we do not know of. And also keep your anti-spyware softwares up to date constantly. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.